Okay. So, I mean, in class I could walk around and see what you drew, but what I'm guessing you drew, which most students draw, is you draw usually a pizza, right, or a pie. Draw a circle that's cut into 4 equal-sized pieces, and then you shaded in 3 of those pieces. Okay, so give me a thumbs up or go change your status to a happy face or something. Did you draw that picture? It's correct, by the way. Did you draw that picture when I said 3/4? Yes, yeah. Most people, this is exactly, yes, Rachel says yes, Emma says yes. This is what I was expecting, and it's 100% correct. Like when I walk around the room, 99% of the time, this is what people draw, and it's totally fine. We're going to get a little bit more nuanced with fractions in the next course, but for this course, this is the basic knowledge we need to have here. We need to know that the denominator, that represents the number of equal-sized pieces in the whole. And so I'll write, I have that on the next slide actually. And the numerator represents how many pieces out of that whole we physically have. And this is called a part-whole relationship. A part-whole relationship. Part-whole relationship. But we use fractions for a lot of other things besides a part-whole relationship. We can use them as a ratio that compares two quantities. The thing about the part-whole relationship is that fractals are what we call referential numbers. They always refer to something. If I say 3/4, the first thing you should ask yourself is 3/4 of what? 3/4 of a pizza? 3/4 of a candy bar? 3/4 of $1? 3/4 of a classroom of students? 3/4 of what? It has to reference something. So when you see a fraction in a word problem, you're going to stop yourself and ask, what is that fraction referencing? Okay. Because for example, if it was 3/4 of a class, let me draw some students here. 1, 2, 3, 4, I don't know. Drawing some students. Okay, we're gonna stop, here. Okay, let's say I have a class with 8 students. So the whole is this class of 8 students. And if I wanted 3/4 of that class, if I said 3/4 of the students got an A on the final, it's still that same idea where I'm going to put it into 4 groups, 4 equal-sized groups. So I would get 1, 2, 3, 4 equal-sized groups, and then I would pick 3 of those groups, right? And then we would like shade in or pick 3 groups. So that would be 1, 2, 3. I'd say, I have 6 out of 8 students. Like, so in the example you drew, you're referencing a whole pizza. And the example I just did, I was referencing a whole classroom. So just slow your brain down and ask, what is this fraction referencing? And it's going to save you a lot of headaches, okay? Okay, so on the next slide, I just have the part-whole relationship written down. And this, again, it wasn't in your notes. I forgot to include that page. It's in the full packet. So at the top of the calendar, I have the full packet provided. And then I split it up by day, and I forgot to include page 38. But it's page 38 of the full packet. Okay. Just part-whole relationship. It's what you're used to. So today we're going to do what you're used to. So here's a problem that I want you to try here. It says there are 12 math majors, 15 science majors, and 16 English majors in the library. What fractional part of the students are math majors? So I'm focusing in on the math majors here. So I know it's going to be a 12 in the numerator, right? So I need a 12 in my numerator. But what's going to go in the denominator? How'd you get 43, Rachel? Yeah, 43. How'd you do that? Yeah, you add them all up, right? If there's 12 math majors and 15 science majors and 16 English majors, and you add them all up, you get 43. So in my math lab, you would enter 43 out of 12. And this does not reduce. Sometimes it will. Later, I'll show you how to reduce this on your calculator. Oh, just heads up. If you have a calculator, a scientific calculator, go get it because you're going to use it a lot today. A lot of the things that you do with fractions, I am not going to expect you to do by hand. I'm just going to let you do it on a calculator because that's the reality of our situation, okay? Now, what about the next question that asks, what fractional part of the students are not math majors? They're not math majors. There you go. I'm not going to include the math majors, so I'm going to add the other two majors. 15 plus 16 is going to add to 31, and it's still referring to the library that has 43 students in it. So make sure when it asks for a fractional part that you write your answer in MyMathLab as a fraction. Okay? Now the last one asks what fractional part of the students are either math or science. So I'm going to take the math or the science. There you go. 27 out of 43. And again, none of these reduce. None of these fractions simplify or reduce, so you just type them into MyMathLab. Sometimes you'll type a fraction into MyMathLab. For example, if you type 3/6 into MyMathLab, it says your answer's correct, but in the wrong format or something annoying like that. That's because that could reduce to 1/2. That's what you would, even if there were 3 out of 6 students, you would still have to put 1/2 into MyMathLab because it's programmed to reduce. So I just wanted to point that out now, but I'm going to show you how to do that on your calculator. Okay, so you'll see some problems like this on your homework where you're just going to have to read through and figure out what is the fraction representing, what's the part, what's the whole. Read really carefully because they might throw words like not in there. That always gets students. Okay, so they're also going to ask about different types of fractions. Different types of fractions. So the first one they're going to talk about are whole numbers. So if a fraction has the same number in the numerator and denominator, it's called a whole number. So somewhere on your paper, I want you to draw a picture to sketch 4 out of 4. So I'm guessing you drew a pizza, because that's what we do. Oops, pretend that's pretty. Oh, old Kelly would have to redraw that. But new Kelly is gonna let that, oh man. Okay, we're just gonna, yeah, it's fine. And then we would break it into 4 slices. And if we have 4 out of 4, that means we have the whole thing, right? If I have 4 out of 4, I have the whole thing. So 4 out of 4 is equal to 1 whole pizza. So when the numerator and denominator are the same number, they're gonna call that a whole number. Now you're used to seeing whole numbers written like that, like number 1, right? But if you see 4 out of 4, they're going to call that a whole number. So I didn't want you to freak out on MyMathLab. It's so technical, you know. And then there's 3 other kinds of fractions. The fractions we've been doing so far are called proper fractions. So these are all examples of proper fractions. 1/2. Oh, I need to plug my computer in. No, don't go. Sorry, let's see if I can beat it. I can do it. Oh, wow. Okay, sorry. Whew, I fried my battery on the tablet. So when I see the low battery sign come up, I literally have seconds to get it plugged in before it shuts down. And I did it. My reflexes. Whew, okay. I got distracted. What were we doing? Oh, proper fractions. Okay. So, and I drew some different examples here because MyMathLab uses all kinds of wonky shapes and I didn't want you to freak out. Like we're used to drawing 1/2 as a pizza, right? So we're used to drawing like a circle, cutting it in 2 pieces, shading it. You might use a triangle. That's fine. As long as when you cut the pieces up, they're equal size and you shade 1 out of the 2 pieces, you're good. So 1/2 is an example of what we call a proper fraction. For 2/3, they used a rectangle. They cut it into 3 equal sized pieces and they shaded 2 of them. Okay, so that's 2/3. For 2/6, they have a rectangle that they cut into 6 equal sized squares and they shaded 2 of them. That's 2/6. All of these are called proper fractions. So if you had to write a definition of a proper fraction, how does the numerator compare to the denominator? How does the number on top compare to the number on bottom on all these? It's smaller, right? The numerator, the number on top, the number of pieces you physically have is less than the denominator, the number of pieces it takes to make a whole. So proper fractions are smaller than 1. Proper fractions are less than 1 whole. Okay, so if MyMathLab is asking you for a proper fraction, your fraction better be less than 1 whole. The number on top better be smaller than the number on bottom. If not, you messed up, okay? Now there's 2 other types of fractions that we're going to have here. The next type is improper fractions. So I drew some examples of improper fractions. Now you have to read these carefully. The number on bottom still tells you the number of pieces, equal size pieces in 1 whole. So when I read 7/5, that tells me there are 5 equal size pieces in 1 whole. The problem is I have 7 of those pieces, right? We have 7 pieces. We have more than enough to make 1 whole. So that's what our picture is going to represent there. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces grouped up for 1 whole. 6, 7. So 2 additional pieces not quite making up the second whole. And there's another example here, 5/4. 4 pieces in a whole. If I have 5 of them, I have enough to make 1 whole plus 1/4 of another one, right? And another example here with 11/5. 5 pieces in a whole. I have 5, 10, 11 of them. So I want you to try to do 11/4, but do it with circles because that's easiest to draw. So use circles for your whole and try to draw 11/4 on your paper. Okay, let's see what you got. So I need 11 pieces. So I'm going to draw 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. That's 1 whole. Then again, there's 4 pieces in a whole. Then, I should number those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I need to keep going, so I need to draw another whole. 4 pieces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's what 11/4 would look like. Yeah, 3 more pieces. And just heads up, on MyMathLab, they're not going to have you draw, obviously, but they'll have you do a multiple choice where you pick the image that matches the number. So but practice drawing them because you might be asked to draw on your final. And if you don't practice it won't come naturally to you on the day of the test. So even though MyMathLab is going to be multiple choice, make sure you're practicing to drawing it out. Oh, and speaking of MyMathLab, I honestly in my heart, y'all, thought I had fixed the whole homework situation where if you got the quiz mostly right, you'd only get a couple homework problems. But I'm looking at your quiz. Did quiz 4 work better than the other quizzes as far as the homework getting generated from the quiz was better, or was it still horrible? I know there was a mistake on quiz 4, but it only affected 1 student. But for the rest of y'all, did it seem fair? Like the homework that was being generated, did it seem relatively fair based on your quiz result? It was better? It was okay? I thought I fixed it. But there was 1 student when I was looking at it, you still got a lot of questions. Yeah, there was 1 student, I just randomly clicked on some and still it generated It got better, but it's still a lot. Okay, I'm going to, let me put on my note here. I'm going to try something different for 5. I didn't write the homework, the committee did, and I thought, oh, that's such a great idea. So I'm still trying to learn the software there. So same for y'all. Before had less questions. Okay. Okay, I'm going to take another look at 5 right after class. See if I can make it any better. I mean, it's important to practice because you only get one shot at the final, right? So don't think about it as like wasted time. I'd rather you over prepare for the final than under prepare. Oh, did I not? Oh, let me write that down. Medea she said, did I post quiz 4 on Blackboard? You don't see it. Uh-oh, I might have forgotten to deploy it. Medea, so let me go. Thank you. I'm putting that on my to-do list. Right after class, I'll double check. Thank you for saying something. Yeah, Rachel doesn't see it either. Okay, I forgot to open it. You only saw 3 quizzes? Okay, so yeah, there's a quiz for every day. And we're calling them practice tests now because students were getting confused with the quizzes on my math lab and the quizzes on Blackboard. But yeah, I will go open that. Thank you so much, y'all. I'll do that right. Or maybe when you're in a breakout group, I'll go do it real quick. So it'll be there, but it's on my to-do list. I wrote it down. Thank you guys. Okay, but back to fractions. So with if they're asking you for an improper fraction, the numerator, the number on top, needs to be greater than, it needs to be larger than the denominator, the number on bottom. So make sure if they're asking you for an improper fraction that when you type it out, the number on top is bigger than the number on bottom. And I'm going to show you how to type fractions in my math lab in just a little bit. And that means an improper fraction is, wow, sorry, my math lab is, or the Blackboard is not picking up my stylus very well. Sorry about that. The improper fraction is going to be larger than 1. Larger than 1 whole. Okay. Okay, and the only other type of fraction you're going to have are mixed numbers, which are related to improper fractions. Mixed numbers are a different way to write an improper fraction. So mixed numbers are still greater than 1, but the way they're written, they're going to have a whole number component next to a proper fraction. So before we had written this picture as having 7/5. Well, if that was true, we had enough for 1 whole and then 2 out of 5 left over. So you have a whole number part and a proper fraction. So similarly on the second box, that had been 5/4. We had enough for 1 whole and then 1 out of 4 left over, and so on. So the picture you drew previously for 2 3/4, a whole number 2 means you have enough for 2 whole pizzas. So you would shade that in, 2 whole pizzas. And then you have 3 out of 4 pieces on the second, or on the last pizza. And again, that was the number 11/4. So you're going to be asked to go back and forth between mixed numbers and proper fractions, and you can do that on your calculator. So I'm going to show you how to do that on your calculator in just a minute. So your follow-up questions, what kind of fraction is next to the whole number? There's a proper fraction next to the whole number. And what do you notice about the pictures? The pictures are greater than 1 whole. It's just like the improper fractions, they're greater than 1 whole. You have more than 1 whole. When you have a mixed number, you have more than 1 whole when you have an improper fraction. Okay, so let's talk about converting back and forth between those. Before I do, how are we feeling so far on fractions? Go to your status, click your status update, show me your face. How are you feeling so far about proper fractions, improper fractions, mixed numbers? Are you dusting some cobwebs off? Yeah, okay. I know fractions are like the F word in math, Emma. So everyone's like, fraction. Yeah, so deep breaths. Most of the stuff you do with fractions in here, you're just going to get to use a calculator, okay? I am going to show you how to change between a mixed number and an improper fraction by hand, but you can also do it on the calculator. I'll show you both ways. Calculator. Okay, so let's do it by hand first. Yeah, Corey, you're not alone. Fractions are crazy. Oh gosh, did I not post the notes, y'all? Give me a second. Hold on, did I forget to post the notes? Oops, it's not letting me go to my calendar. Let me see. Oh my gosh, y'all. Oh no, it's there. So Emma, when you go to our calendar and you go to the day 5 activities, you'll see a version of what we're doing here, but it's not going to be exactly the same because I'm kind of going rogue. I mean, there's like a gazillion things we're supposed to do about fractions, and I have to kind of pick and choose. So this isn't exactly following the notes, but it's pretty similar. And I will post an answer key for both day 4 that I missed when Nancy was here, and I'll post an answer key for today of the actual notes that are printed, but I'm kind of picking and choosing what we're doing here. And let's see. There you go. So Jessica, she converted the mixed number to a fraction, an improper fraction. Emma said that, how do we do that? The steps are here for us, y'all. And when I have students do these, and then I ask them why do you do that? So this is what the steps say. And I'm going to follow through the steps here, and then we're going to talk about why it works. So let me write this problem down, and I'm going to follow the steps. The steps say, step 1, multiply the whole number by the denominator. So we're going to multiply 2 by 5. Here, I have to remember, I have to do that a little bit better. My brain can't handle it. I need to slow down with my stylus here. Hold on. Uh-oh. There it goes. Sorry, my Blackboard freaked out for a minute. Okay, so step 1. Hold on, y'all. Okay, Blackboard's being really slow so I'm going to slow down a little bit. Okay, so step 1 says 2 times 5. You multiply the whole number, 2, by the denominator, 5, and you get 10. Then the next step says you add the product of the whole number of the denominator to the numerator. So you add the 10 to the numerator. And then when you do that, you get 11 out of 10. You get 11. Sorry, not 11 out of 10. What is it? 11 out of 5, because the denominator, there's 5 pieces in a whole. There's 5 pieces in a whole. So the denominator does not change. Your denominator does not change. So my question is always why? Why did we do that? Why do we multiply and then add? What's actually going on here when we do all that? So if you draw a picture, it makes it really easy to see why we do that. If you have 2 whole pieces and each of those have 5, isn't that just 2 times 5? You have 5 2 times. So if there's 5 pieces in a whole and you have 2 of them, when you multiply, that gives you 10 total pieces. But then the numerator tells you how many extra you have. So if you have 1 extra piece, you just add it on to that total. So that's why you're multiplying and adding. But your calculator will do that for you. So if you have your calculator out, let me show you the button there. On your calculator, you should have a button that looks something like this. It might be a second feature where you have to hit the second button first, and then above a button it'll say that. Every calculator is different, so I'm going to pull up the calculator that I recommended in the syllabus because I think a lot of students have that calculator. And then I'll show you real quick what that looks like. Oh man, hold on. If it'll let me. Hold on real quick. I thought it was going to let me share this, maybe not. Let me try real quick. Okay. Let me just pull one of these up super fast. This one. Okay. So I'm going to share the calculator just to, well, okay, this is being slow. Does anyone need help finding that button on their calculator? If you do, I'll keep doing what I'm doing. If not, I won't. Does anyone need help finding the button? Oh man. Okay, so I've never taught this course online, so I don't know. You can't find it? Okay, let me share this. I didn't think this, what this looks like online. In class, I would walk around to each individual person and point it out on your calculator. So let me pull up, let me share this screen real quick. Give me one sec. Okay, I think this will do it. Let me see. Okay, so this is the calculator that was recommended in class, but all calculators are kind of the same. See how there's a fraction button right here? It says A, capital A, it's a mixed number. A is the whole part and B over C is the improper fraction. If you use that button, like if you want to type, what was the number we were doing, 2 1/5? I would hit, so clear your screen real quick, then hit 2, fraction button, and it'll put like little U on your screen. Then 1 fraction button, then 5. So 2 fraction button, 1 fraction button, 5. And that's gonna put 2 1/5 on your screen up here. And if you wanna change that to an improper fraction, if you look above your fraction button in blue, it says a mixed number, and then there's an arrow going back and forth with either a proper or an improper fraction. If you hit second fraction button, then enter, it'll change it back and forth between mixed numbers and improper. So second will pull up the blue command above the button, and then when you press enter, it should change it back and forth. I don't know if that was helpful at all since I can't see what you're doing. Did that help, Corey, or not really? You got it? Okay. And see, it's kind of tedious on a calculator. That's why I wanted to show you this one thing by hand. Like, I'm not going to ask you to add fractions by hand. You'll just use a calculator. I'm not going to ask you to subtract, multiply, or divide fractions by hand. We'll just use a calculator. But this skill is so tedious on a calculator. It's easier to do by hand, right? So I wanted to show it to you guys. Anyone else have a different type of calculator that they're struggling to find the button? Because I can Google image it, and then we can I can show you where the button is. No? Okay. So now let's go the opposite direction. Well, I'm going to show you on the calculator first, since I have it pulled up to do the opposite direction. So let's say we wanted to go 11/5 and move it back to the mixed numbers. So this is what you would do. So you'd clear your screen. So clear your screen. Then to make your calculator do it for you, if you do 11 divide by 5, everyone type that in for me real quick. Do 11 division 5. That division button pops up like a fraction bar. But if you press enter, it'll automatically change it to a decimal format. So the division button on your calculator is programmed to change fractions to decimals. But in MyMathLab, they want you to put a fraction, mixed number fraction, right? So don't use the decimal button, the division button, clear it out. Then type 11, fraction button 5, and press enter, and it might automatically change it to a mixed number for you. So if you do 11 fraction button 5 equal, it probably will automatically change it to a mixed number. If not, do 11 fraction button 5, then do the second fraction button. Okay. Yeah, so I'm reading the chat here because I didn't see it earlier. So yeah, if you did 11 divided by 5, it gave you 2.2. which is 2 1/5, but we want it to be if we want to go back to an improper fraction. So it didn't do that right away. Okay, yeah, so to go back to an improper fraction, you would just have to use that second button again. So when you have that 2 1/5 on your screen, you'll have to just hit second fraction button to pull up that conversion between mixed numbers and improper fractions. So if you do second fraction button, enter, it should change it back to 11/5 for you. And we can do it by hand. I'm going to show you how to do it by hand. You don't have to use the calculator, but it's pretty tedious by hand. So I'll come back to the calculator here in a minute, but let's go do that by hand real quick, just to show you what I mean here. Okay, let's do it by hand. Let me pull up that slide. Where were we? Oh man, Blackboard's being so slow. I hope I don't... I hope I don't get kicked off here. Okay, so 11 over 5. If we want to do it by hand, okay, this is what you have to do. You have to do long division. I know, everyone's favorite thing ever, right? So you would have to take this. I might have to change to my app, y'all. It's not writing. Will it write with my finger? No. Okay. I'm going to have to change to my app because Blackboard is running too slowly for me to share my screen. Oh, you know what? Why I'm changing to my app, I just saw on here, I totally skipped these problems. So work out these two real quick either on your calculator by hand, and I'm going to change over to my app. And then hopefully it'll work better. Give me a sec. Okay. I'm about to share my app, but before I do that, let me see if it'll let me write. Oh, now it's letting me write. So when you did this one, 8 plus 3 was 11, and then the denominator stayed in 8 because there were 8 pieces in a whole. And then on the other one, 5 times 9 is 45, and then you add the 4 extra pieces, and that would give you 49 pieces out of 9 for each whole. So hopefully you got those either by hand or using your calculator. Any questions about either of those before I switch over to my app? Okay. Cool. I'm going to switch over. The bad thing about the app is once I'm in my app, I can't see the screen. So I hear a little ding when y'all type in the chat or raise your hand, but if I miss it, oh, good question. Lauren is asking, can you simplify 49 out of 9? The answer is no. It doesn't simplify because the only numbers that go into 49 are 7, 1, 49, and those numbers don't go into 9. But we're going to talk about simplifying in just a minute. But yeah, the answer is no, it doesn't. And the way you'll know for sure, here's the cheater way before I go over there. If you type 40, the fraction 49, oh, it's not letting me write on the board. No, okay. I was going to try to share a whiteboard with you, but it's not letting me write on it because Blackboard's being slow. Okay. But basically what I was going to say was if you type 49 and use the fraction button to do 49 over 9 and press enter on your calculator, it automatically is programmed to reduce fractions. And if you do 49 fraction button 9 on your screen, it stays, and you hit enter on your screen, it stays 49 out of 9. It doesn't reduce it. But if you typed, for example, 3/6 into your calculator, it would automatically reduce it to 1/2. But I can't write on here. So we're getting out of Blackboard before my blood pressure goes up. Okay, here we go. Let me share my application window. Oh man. Okay, here it is. Okay. Oops. Oh no, maybe it's my tablet. Oh no, it's not my tablet. Okay. So just to clarify what I was saying, if I did 49 and then I did my fraction button, 9, and then I hit equal, on my screen it's going to show 49 out of 9 because it doesn't reduce. But if I have like 3/6 and I do 3 fraction button 6, so it enters my screen like this, 3 fraction button 6, and then I hit the equal button, it's automatically going to reduce it to 1/2 because 3/6 does reduce, but 49 out of 9 doesn't reduce. So your calculator will just keep it 49 out of 9, where 3/6, your calculator will automatically simplify it to 1/2 for you. Oops. Okay, so let me find what slide we were on real quick. It's going to make you dizzy. Don't look. Close your eyes. Hold on, my screen is stuck. It might be my device. Oh well, here we go. Okay, no, here it is. So let's talk about how to change an improper fraction to a mixed number by hand. You can always use your calculator. But you might have a sibling or a child or something and learning fractions, and you can help them now, right? So if I want to convert 11/5 to a mixed number, you have 11 items. That's what you physically have. You have 11 pieces. I want to put them in groups of 5. So I'm going to divide by 5, right? And then you do your favorite thing in the whole world. You do long division. So 5 times what number? 5 times what number gets you really, really close to 11? So that's 5 times 2, right? If you do that, you use up 10 pieces. If you have 11 pieces, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and you group them into 5, you've used up 10 of them, so you subtract those off. That's 1 left over. And then you write your remainder there as a fraction. So that would give you 2 whole pieces and 1 out of 5 left over. So if you want to do it by hand, improper to mixed, you have to do long division, which is not always super convenient. So you could also just use your calculator. Okay, and that's what I want you to try here. So on 22 and 23, either do long division or you can use brain power. Like number 22 is pretty easy to think. You can probably just use, but number 23 is a little harder. So try both of those real quick. Okay, so hopefully for the first one, if you have 4 pieces and it takes 3 to make a whole, you have enough for 1 whole and then 1 out of 3 remaining. So 4/3 should be 1 1/3. And on your calculator, you would type 4, then your fraction button, then 3, and either do enter, it might automatically change it to a fraction, or you would have to do the second fraction button again to get it where it converts back and forth. Cool. And what did we get for our next one here? That one, if 7 goes into 40, how many do I remember? What is that going to be? That's going to go in 5 times. Because 5 times 7 is 35. And if I use up 35 pieces, how many is left over? So 6 pieces left over. So 5 and 6/7. Did I do that right? Did anyone else get 5 and 6/7? Yes? Okay. I wasn't using the algorithms. I was trying to use my brain. And okay, cool. I don't care. So basically, here's the deal. I don't care if you do it by hand. I don't care if you use your calculator. I don't care if you do long division. I don't care if you do mental math. You can do it however you want. Okay, so we're going to go to breakout groups for a minute so you can just like stop hearing me talk for a while. In your breakout groups, you're going to work some questions about equivalent fractions. Okay. So equivalent is a special word in math. Equivalent means there's two things represent the same amount, but they look different. So for example, if I give you a dollar bill and you give me a dollar bill back, that's equal. But if I give you a dollar bill and you give me 4 quarters back, that's equivalent. 4 quarters looks different than a dollar bill, but it's worth the same. So same idea in fractions here. I say 1/2 is equivalent to 3/6. Because if I have a pizza and I cut it into 2 pieces and I shade 1 out of 2, that's equivalent to having a pizza, cutting it into 6 pieces and shading 3 out of 6. It looks different, but it's the same amount of pizza, right? Instead of eating 1 big slice out of 2, you're eating 3 smaller slices out of 6, but it's the same. You still ate half a pizza either way. So you're going to explore this idea of equivalent fractions in breakout groups. So I'm going to share a PowerPoint with you, and you're going to do problems 24 through 33. It's in your same as in your notes, same problems. Then when we come back together, we're really going to hit order of operations and equations with using a calculator to help us with all the operations with fractions, okay? Before we go into breakout groups, any questions about anything we've done so far? No? Are you ready? Okay, so when you get to your breakout group, say hi, introduce yourselves. You might be with new people that you haven't met before. And then I'll send the PowerPoint over to y'all, and you can write on the screen, type on the screen to go through the slides together. Okay? Cool. So let me put you in breakout groups. And if you need any help, like if y'all can't agree on something or you don't know who's right, raise your hand and I'll pop into the groups, okay? I'll probably just pop in anyway, but okay. There we go. And okay, you're moving into your groups now. Take a fraction and simplify it down, but it can't take a fraction and like make the denominator and numerator bigger. So this is what you have to do. Okay, I'm gonna write 2/5 here. Oops. Oh man, hopefully it'll let me write on the screen. Any minute now. Okay, well let me type. Let me see if it'll let me type on the screen. 2, okay it does. So give me a second. Oh. So 2 over 5. Oh man. Okay, so that's 2/5. And I want that to equal a fraction that's over 50, right? So you just have to ask yourselves, what number would you multiply 5 by to get the 50? So 5 times what number gets you the 50? Now careful, 5 times 100 would get you 500. So it has to be smaller than that. So 5 times what would get you 50? And just heads up, if I did 5 times 100, let me write that out real quick, because if I did 5 times 100, so 5 times 100, that would end up getting me 500 on the bottom, and we don't want that. Yeah, 10. We're going to do 5 times 10. 5 times 10 will get me that 50 on the bottom that I want right there. So that'll get me this 50 on the bottom. And then we have a rule that says whatever you multiply by on the bottom, you need to multiply the same number on the top. So on the top, I'd have to do 2 times 10. And that would get me a 20 up there on the top. So 2 out of 5 is the same as 20 out of 50. And let's see if it'll let me write that now. So 2 out of 5 is the same as 20 out of 50. And you can check yourself on the calculator. If I type this in my calculator and press enter, it's going to reduce it back down to that smaller fraction. Your calculator just can't go the other way. It can't take a simplified fraction and make it unsimplified. So you just think like, what number would I multiply the denominator by to get my denominator? And then you do the same thing to the numerator. And the reason why you do that is technically what you did when you did 2/5 times 10 over 10. 10 over 10 is just 1. You just multiplied it by 1. And when you multiply something by 1, it doesn't change the value. But multiplying by something equivalent to 1 changes the way it looks. Okay, so yeah, so let's talk about this next one here. I won't do it for you, but I'll just get it set up. If you have 2 out of 5 and you want it to be something out of 30. Oh, go ahead, Tony. Oh, sorry. I thought I saw the hand raised. Yeah, you just think, okay, what would I multiply 5 by to get 30? And then whatever that is, you multiply the same thing on the top to get the new numerator. That's right. 5 times 6 would give me 30. So 2 times 6 would give me 12. And then again, you can check yourself on the calculator. If I put 12 out of 30 on my calculator and press enter, it's automatically programmed to reduce that to me. It should reduce to 2/5. So you can check yourself on the calculator. You just can't go the other direction. Cool, cool. Okay, y'all have a couple more to do. I think y'all are going up to like question 33. So I'm going to hop into another group real quick, but if you need me, just raise your hand, okay? Cool, cool. I do with my little glove. Did I put it in my pocket? Sorry, let me grab. I'm left-handed, so I have to wear a little glove when I'm writing on my screen or my hand hits all the home buttons. The left corner of my screen. Troubles of lefties. Any lefties out there? Any of? Corey's left-handed too. You know the struggle. Anyone else left-handed? Jessica, Yante, you're left-handed. You get it. The struggle is real, I'm telling you. So I had to buy this. Well, actually, my office mate gave me this little glove to wear because she was tired of like the profanity coming out of my office when I kept hitting the home button keys with my hands and activating them. Okay, here we go. So we are going to look at some word problems that have fractions in them. And the first one is going to involve a fraction of something. A fraction of something. Okay. And you're going to use your calculator. We are not doing this by hand. So let's read this one right here. It says, a survey was given to 45 students in a class asking how they studied for an exam. Of all 45 students, only 1/5 of the students. I just realized I'm in Blackboard and it's not going to let me write with my stylus. Poop-a-doop. Only 1/5 of the students completed all of the homework. What is going on with this class? 1/5 of the students complete all the homework? That's not this class. Y'all know to complete your homework. Okay, so only 1/5 of the students completed all the homework, but 2/3 of the students completed the exam review. Okay. So that's amazing. So when you see a fraction of something, always ask yourself, what is it referring to? And then on your calculator, the fraction of, you're going to just multiply. So they were wanting us to think about what it means to be 1/5 of something. So technically what we were supposed to do is we were supposed to take 45 students, split them into 5 equal groups. So split them up into 5 equal groups. Trying to do this with my mouse. Not so. If I split 45 students up into 5 equal groups, how many students would that be in each of those groups? If I did that, there would be 9 students, so I would have 9 students in each group. So this is 1/5 of the class, this is 1/5 of the class, here's 1/5 of the class, here's 1/5 of the class. They were wanting us to do it by hand like this. So we would split it up into 5 equal groups and take one of the 5 groups and see that it's 9 students. But what you're going to do is on your calculator, you're going to change 1/5 of 45 students to 1/5 times 45. So type that in on your calculator and see if you get 9. Use your fraction button to enter the 1/5. Yeah, and if you're not getting 9, raise your hand or let me know. If you are getting 9 on your calculator, great. Cool, y'all got it? So then do the same thing with the 2/3. So if 2/3 of the 45 students did the review, you're going to type in 2/3 times 45 on your calculator and see what you get. Is it 30? Okay. Yeah. And just heads up, when you click the help tools on MyMathLab, this is what it's going to do. It would separate the class into 3 groups. So that'd be 15 students in each group. And if each of those is a third, then for 2/3, it was wanting you to just like group 2 of those together. So it's not that bad to do it the MyMathLab way, but I'm just going to let you enter that on your calculator. So yeah, you should get 30. So if you see a fraction of something, you're going to know just to multiply on your calculator. Everyone cool with that? God, I feel like I'm sucking like all the fun out of fractions, but this is reality. Reality is we have one day to do fractions. Okay. So here we go. So the next thing, the next thing you're going to see, sometimes they're going to ask you to estimate, and sometimes they're going to ask you to do it exactly. Okay, so what does that mean on MyMathLab? Because it gets really frustrating. So here's the problem. You want to use 1/4 of your salary each month to pay off your credit cards, and you made this exact amount of money this month. So on the exactly one, on your calculator, you'll straight up type 1/4 times that amount of money and get the exact amount. So let's see what that is when we get the exact amount. So on your calculator, go ahead and type that in. And I got 3140.5. So yeah, that's it. And they'll make you write it as money. So make sure you change it to 50 cents. If you put 0.5, I think they count it. I think they count it wrong. They say like your answer is correct, but not in the right format or something annoying. Okay. For the estimate, you have to keep the 1/4, but then they want you to round that amount of money. Now, here's the thing. They don't always tell you how to round it. So like maybe you wanted to round that up to 13,000. Oops. To $13,000 or something. So you're overestimating. And you would put that in your calculator. Maybe you wanted to round that to just be $12,600. Round it to the nearest 100, right? There's different ways to do it. So MyMathLab is supposed to be programmed to accept a variety of answers. What MyMathLab does not want you to do is to find the exact answer and then just round that. So if you enter 3141 because you rounded the exact answer, MyMathLab's going to count it wrong. Does that make sense? So don't find the exact answer and then round it. Do some kind of rounding before you take the fraction of it, and it should count it right. If for some reason it's not, just send me and ask the instructor and I'll override the gradebook. So for example, if I did 1/4 of 2,600, I would enter 3150 into MyMathLab. Or if I did 1/4 of 13,000, I would enter 3250. And it should count both of those right. But if I round the exact answer, it'll count it wrong. So I just wanted to give you all that word of warning there. How do y'all feel on that? You feel okay? Show me a status. Feel good? Okay. Cool. Okay, so you've been warned when you go to do your homework about the rounding. Okay, so then skipping along, your notes go into extreme detail on how to compare fractions with less than or greater than symbols, okay? And if your fractions have the same denominator, then it's really easy to compare, right? If you have 55 out of 62, and you're comparing it to 42 out of 62, if you have 55 out of 62, of course that's bigger than having 42 out of 62. There it's easy to tell, right? Like you just know 55 out of 62 is more than 42 out of 62. It's just bigger. But when your denominators are different, what your calculator is having you, what your notes are having you do is to get a common denominator first. So you would have to change the 1 out of 7 to be something out of 21, which you totally can do, right? I can do that because you practice that in your breakout groups. You'd say 7 times what number would get you 21? And that turns out to be 7 times 3, right? So then you would do 1 times that exact same number to get the new numerator. So 1 out of 7 is the same as 3 out of 21. And then it's easier to compare the two fractions, right? Comparing 5 to 21 and 3 to 21 is easy. I can see 5 out of 21 is bigger. But what I'm going to let you do for these is you can change 5 out of 21 to a decimal number because it's easier for your brain to compare decimals. So in your calculator, you can just type 5 divided by 21 and get the decimal number for that. So 5 divided by 21, use the division button on your calculator and you'll get approximately, so I'm going to do curly equals, 0.238. And then if I do 1 divided by 7 on my calculator, I get approximately 0.14. And then my brain can easily see that having 23 cents is way more than having 14 cents. So it would be 5 out of 21 has a greater decimal value than 1 out of 7. So I don't care which way you do it on the homework or on a test. I just didn't want you to freak out. If you ask my math lab for help, they're going to give you common denominator notes, but I'm okay if you use decimals. Technically, we haven't learned decimals yet. That's why my math lab isn't using them. Decimals are on day 6. But I'm just being a realist here with the decimals. So how do you feel about that, using decimals to compare the fractions? I'm into decimals? Okay, good. Usually our brain thinks better in decimals. It just technically we haven't learned it till day 6, but I'm going to let you use them. Okay, so I'm kind of skipping around there. That's what you're going to do to compare. You have a choice, common denominators or decimals. I don't care which one. There is something they're going to have you do where they're trying to give you some like number sense about fractions. So they might give you some 2-part expressions where you can still use decimals to get the final answer, but there might be like a part A or part B leading up to that where you have to do some reasoning. So here's one example of the reasoning you might have to do. So it says, consider the fractions 1/8 and 11/12. Those definitely do not have common denominators, right? I do not have to change these to decimals to compare them if you know what these fractions are. If you think about 1 out of 8, if I drew that picture, if I have a whole that has 8 pieces and I only have one of them, compared to a whole that has 12 pieces, okay, pretend I'm drawing this nicely, but it has 12 pieces, and I have 11 out of the 12. If I have all but one, like visually, it's obvious that 11 out of 12 is bigger, right? And what my math lab is going to say is that 1 out of 8 is closer to 0 than it is to 1. 11 out of 12 is closer to 1 than it is to 0. And if you think about that, like visually, you don't have to change it to decimals. You can see the 1/8 is closer to 0. The 11/12 is closer to 1 and compare them that way. Again, you could just change those to decimals. If I do 1 divided by 8, that's going to be the decimal 0.125. And if I do 11 divided by 12, that's going to be the decimal 0.916 repeating forever and ever. So like, again, you can use decimals, but they might have you do like part A is 1/8 closer to 0 or closer to 1. So you'll have to answer part A and say it's closer to 0. then part B will say, is 11/12 closer to 0 or closer to 1? So it's closer to 1. And then part C will just have you compare them. So I just want you to be prepared for that. Any questions on the thought process between comparing numbers to 0 or 1? Can you just use decimals if you want to? Yeah, for the final answer. Yeah, you can. It's those intermediate steps. They're trying to get you to use some number sense or some reasoning. Yeah, it's a little confusing, but the drawing helps. Drawings help me a lot with fractions. Now, here's the problem with MyMathLab and drawings, though. You know that they're going to give you some kind of wonky picture, right? What if I had you compare 1 out of 9 to 37 out of 41 or something like that? Like, we don't want to draw a circle that has 41 pieces in it. Like, oh my gosh, that'd be awful, right? So, but I can see that 1 out of 9 is closer to 0 and 37 out of 41 is closer to 1. So you can kind of use that reasoning and skip the picture if the picture is awful, because MyMathLab just generates like random numbers. So they might give you some yucky numbers. Or you could just do decimals for the final answer. Okay, cool. Another kind of like number sense thing they're going to show you with fractions is to have you compare them to 1/2. Like, so for this example here, number 16, if I have 13 out of 18 and 11 out of 24. So we're not going to compare to 0 and 1 now, because it's a little bit harder to see. Like, these are closer together, so it's harder to see, like, is it closer to 0, 1? I don't know. They're going to have you compare to 1/2. So ask yourself, what is half of 18? Half of 18 is 9, right? Yeah, so if I have 13 out of 18, that's more than 9 out of 18, right? So this right here, having 13 out of 18 is more than 1/2. Without even having to draw the picture, I can just sense 13 out of 18. If half of 18 is 9, then having 13 out of 18 is more than 1/2. And then you do the same thing for the other fraction. You're like, okay, well, what's half of 24? Yeah, half of 24 is 12, right? So if I only have 11 out of 12, sorry, if I only have 11 out of 24 and half is 12 out of 24, if I compare 11 to 24, see how that's less than half? So when I go to compare those, I can say, oh, if 13 out of 18 is more than half and 11 out of 12 is less than half, then 13 out of 18 has to be more. Again, for the final answer, you could totally just do decimals, right? But what's going to happen is part A, they're going to ask you is 13 out of 18 greater than or equal to 1/2? And you'd have to say it's greater. And then for part B, they're going to say, okay, for part B, is 11 out of 24 greater than or less than 1/2? And you say, okay, it's less. And then finally, for part C, you could do decimals if you wanted to. At that point, you don't need them anymore, but they're going to break it down and make you think it through. So if you only use decimals, you'll only get part C. Well, I guess you could, well, you know what? You could do decimals for these other ones, right? You could do decimals for part A. What am I thinking? 13 divided by 18 is 0.72. And of course, that's greater than 1/2. Oh yeah, we can, guys, we can cheat with decimals on those too. Not cheat, I shouldn't say that. We can use our knowledge of decimals to help us on the other parts also. So same 11 out of 24, if I do 11 divided by 24 on my calculator, that's 0.45. And if I compare that to 1/2, I can see it's less than, okay, never mind. However your brain wants to think about it, right? At this point, if you like decimals, use decimals. Okay. Any questions on that before I navigate away from this and we talk about order of operations and equations? Okay, so here we go. So here's the deal, y'all. You're going to do order of operations just like we've always done. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, just like we've always done. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. But there's a page in your notes that talks about how to add fractions by hand, how to subtract fractions by hand, how to multiply and divide fractions by hand. I will never ask you in this class or the next class or the next class to ever do a fraction by hand. You will just use your calculator. However, you do need to show the steps of order of operations. So when you read your expression, follow PEMDAS, but use your calculator to actually do the calculations. So let's look at this. I have 4/5 minus, so 4/5 minus 1/2 times 6/5. So I have to do the multiplication before I do the subtraction, right? Okay. So when I do that, I'm just going through my PEMDAS list here. So there were no parentheses, there's no exponents. I'm going to multiply or divide before I add or subtract. So in my calculator, I need to type 1/2 as a fraction using the fraction button times 6/5 as a fraction, and then see what I get. And if you know how to do it by hands, that's great. So go ahead and type it. You should end up getting 6/10, or your fraction might automatically reduce it. If your fraction automatically reduces it, then you're going to end up getting, what is that reduced to? 3/5. Yeah, 3/5. Okay, yeah, most calculators, I think all calculators will automatically reduce. So you really have 4/5 minus 6/10 if you did it by hand. You'll have 4/5 minus 3/5 if you did it on the calculator. I'll accept either one for partial credit. And then once you do your multiply or divide, then you just need to do the add or subtract. And you might be able to do this in your head. If you can do it in your head, you're less like you're more likely to make a typo on the calculator than doing this in your head. If you have 4/5, if you have 4 out of 5, and you take 3 out of 5 away, there's still 5 in a whole, right? But if you have 4 of them and you take away 3, don't you just have 1/5 left? Yeah, so if you can do it by hand, great. If not, just use your calculator. Okay? So let's do another one here with our PEMDAS. Get that calculator handy. Okay, so I see all kinds of parentheses. But remember, inside the parentheses, there's only a 1/3. There's nothing to do. And inside the parentheses, I have a negative 27 over 30. There's nothing to do inside the parentheses. So then we're going to go to exponents. So in your calculator, you're going to type 1, then your fraction button, then 3, and every calculator is different. You might have to hit equals, then do your exponent button, or you might be able to type it all in at once, but you should end up on your screen getting 1/9. If you don't get 1/9 when you do that, let me know and we can figure it out. So everyone try to enter 1/3 squared on your calculator and see if you get 1/9. Cool. So you've done your exponents. Now you just have to multiply, right? So then on your calculator, you'll just hit, make sure you do the negative button, not subtraction. Negative button, 27 fraction 30. Don't do decimals or my math app will count it wrong. So type that in your calculator and let's see what you get. Ooh, wait, did that come out to be 1/10? Negative 1/10. Oh, mine. I might have gotten it wrong. Hold on. Let me try that again. So that's 3. I think you should come out to get negative 1/10. Did anyone else get negative 1/10? Okay. So, Corey, something got typed in wrong. Did you do the 9 over 1 maybe instead of 1 over 9? Try it again, Corey. Okay, you got it? Anyone else need help before we move on? No? Okay, so I'm just going to emphasize one more time. To get credit on your test or on a quiz, you have to show all the steps. You can't just go straight to the answer, but you can use your calculator to perform the multiplying and dividing. You can use your calculator to do the add and subtract. You can use your calculator to do exponents. Lauren, you got 1/9 also? I'm not sure. Oh, good. Oh, Lauren, you got the 1/9 here. Excellent. Now don't forget to do the next part where you multiply by 27/30, and that should get you your final answer. Okay, cool. Yeah. So yeah, the 1/9 was just the exponent part. Then we have to finish it. Cool. Okay.